since yesterday, but we are so glad that you saw fit to join us this evening for the College Language Association Presidential Address. And of course, this continues our theme of homecoming and also family connection and reunion. So this evening, our president needs no introduction, but will have an introduction. Okay. And I will start out with some background information on her, but with 3 words from someone who knows her best. Her mother, Miss Brenda Lynn Ward, in the back, wave your hands, sitting next to her father, Reverend Jarvis Ward.
So am I.
And some of you have mistaken her mother for her at the front, and she greeted you, but let me tell you 3 words that she said about her daughter. She said, committed, faithful, and determined. And the introduction can almost stop there, but I know we have many more words to come. So in her written bio, Dr. Jervette R. Ward is the president and a lifetime member of the College Language Association, the oldest and largest organization of Black professors of languages and literature. She is the director of Black Studies and a tenured associate professor of media and communication arts at the City College of New York in the City University of New York system, CUNY. She means so much to so many people in this room for her scholarship, for her leadership, for her sisterhood in scholarship and leadership. And we just are so grateful to have you in the space, to have your words, to have your presence, and for all you're doing for the College Language Association. And so with that, I will turn it over to the Dr. Jervette R. Ward, our president of the College Language Association.
You're trying to make me cry before I get up here? Thank you. Wow, thank you, Madam VP. She tried to make me cry before I get up here. I'm like, really? That's what we're doing today? Thank you. Those words mean a lot. All right. I'm gonna figure out a way to make it all work up here. You know, we're millennials up here. We have all the technologies. So we're gonna see what we make it do what it do. There we go. Greetings, CLA scholars. How are you? You good? How's your convention going? We're in what, the first official day? How many of you are here for the pre-convention day? How many of you went over there and had that good lunch over at Lemoyne? Yeah, very much so. Thank you. Well, welcome home. Welcome home. I am thrilled to be back in our founding city, in my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm also incredibly honored to have my parents here with me, and thank you for shouting them out for you. I also will have my grandparents tomorrow night, so hopefully we'll be able to see them as well. Granny has said she has had her blue, CLA blue evening gown picked out for about 3 months now. So make sure you shout out my granny when you see her, because she will be around. And she's also had her shoes. If you know, I do like a good pair of shoes, and that came from Granny, who has had those picked out for probably 5 months now as well. So, but thank you for coming home, and we hope that it's felt like home. As the CLA Executive Committee has served as not only your executive committee this year in planning this year's convention, but we have also served as this year's host institution, because we did not have a host institution this year. We had no institutional support for the 82nd annual convention, yet we said that ain't gonna stop us. If you remember last year, I said we here, and we gonna still be here no matter what. And so we convened and we said, we've grown up as an organization. And as we approach our almost 90th year of existence, we decided to stand on our own, but to do more than just that. We decided to also give back, because that's what we do as CLA scholars. We said we wanted to honor the institution that housed our founding back in 1937. And if you know anything about HBCUs, sometimes dollars can be a little tight, sometimes a little short. And we wanted to make sure that we honored and did not put any strain on the institution that gave us birth here in Memphis, Tennessee. In 1937, a group of Black scholars gathered from April 22nd to April 24th on the campus of the HBCU, then called Lemoyne College, for the initial conference of the Teachers of English and Negro Colleges. They convened to address what they saw as the alarming decline of the oral and written expression of the average college student. Yet, they also took time for moments of community, cultural and social uplift, as they found opportunities to enjoy theater productions and intercollegiate debate, and even a president's tea in the faculty garden. And I am going to pause right there, because those who know me know I love an afternoon tea, and don't act surprised when you see it on a future convention program, because our founders had one at the very first one as well. So those individuals met on the campus of Lemoyne and set the very foundation that we enjoy today of a scholarly community that is also firmly committed to Black joy and excellence. And it is that very foundation that we are continuing to build upon and to honor today. When I became the president of the College Language Association, I shared 6 goals with the executive committee for my presidency and the administration. One of those 6 goals was to increase archives awareness and utilization among members, and in commitment to that goal, I applied for the Atlanta University Center, AUC, Robert W. Woodruff Travel Grant. The CLA archives are housed at the AUC in the Woodruff Library, so I was incredibly thrilled when I was selected for the grant to spend a week at the library and to give a talk based on my findings. I applied for that travel grant for 2 reasons. One, I applied as the president of CLA based on the recognition that our archives are an underutilized resource of this organization. Second, I also wanted to become more aware of and informed about the organization that I was tasked to lead. I knew the history that we posted on our website, but I knew that there had to be so much more to the organization, and the archives have proven that to be true 10 times over. When I arrived at the AUC, I'd only been to our archives once before, on a brief visit with Dr. Dunna, Akiba, Sullivan, Harper, Dr. Dash, past President Dash. And I was excited about the opportunity to learn and to ultimately share about the legacy of CLA. Yet, funnily, the week that I was scheduled to visit was the last week of Black History Month. Anyone know what happened that week in the AUC? I'm gonna tell you right quick, okay then. So funnily, the week that I was scheduled to visit, that last week of Black History Month, was also the not only that bonus day in Black History Month, it was also a different world day. Anyone know what that is? Okay, so we're gonna back up here. So one of the requirements of the grant is to give a lecture at the end of the visit. And my lecture was scheduled for the last day of the month in a leap year, a bonus day of Black History Month, February 29th. But it was what day in the AUC? A different world day. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with the AUC, it's a partnership between Morehouse, Clark Atlanta University, and Spelman College, who's celebrating their Founders Day today, right? We got some Spelman, that's what, yeah, happy Founders Day. Because I seen y'all posting on the internets all day, so I wanted to make sure I shouted that out. So imagine being scheduled at the library for those 3 institutions on the day that the 10-city reunion tour for the cast of A Different World was scheduled to be there too. Yeah, that's exactly what I said to them. And so as I told them, I was starting to wonder who was going to be giving President Ward's CLA Archives talk that day, because I too was trying to get tickets to attend the Different World reunion tour event. So I said, who giving that talk? But they told me that you had to have a .Morehouse, .Spelman, .Clark Atlanta email address to be able to get a ticket. Right, exactly. Thank you. So I was like, well, I guess I better give this talk. So I was honored and surprised at the number of people who showed up for the talk anyway, me being one of those, because I knew that the space and place we were in was special. I know that space, Spelman in particular, holds a special place in the memories of all of us who love A Different World. That TV show that tells the story of an HBCU, it tells the story of people attending an HBCU. It is unapologetically Black. CLA was not only founded at an HBCU, but our very founding name, Teachers of English in Negro Colleges, unapologetically announced who we are and what and where we planned to do it. So to make sure that I honored the space and place of that day, I shared with those gathered, and I'll share with you too, that CLA also has a relationship with the TV show A Different World. Dr. Eleanor Traylor was recently featured in a December 29th, 2023 Washington Post article entitled "Sister Friend of Angelo, Baldwin, and Morrison Champions Their Books." She is a longtime CLA member, and she is the former head of the Howard University's Humanities and English departments. Where are they? Come on, HU. There you go. When Dr. Mary Emma Graham, who founded the Project on the History of Black Writing, because you know you can't say her name without saying the other one, they go together, sent me the article, I read that it describes her as the last of a close-knit generation of African-American writers that included James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, and Toni Morrison. So not only is she a longtime CLA member and proud contributor to the literary community, but what is also really cool is that in that article, Keith L. Alexander writes, when Alan directed the TV series A Different World in the late 80s and early 1990s, Traylor served as the inspiration for the over-the-top recurring character, Dean Dorothy Dandridge Davenport, played by Jennifer Lewis. You are going on my list. Anybody? Yes. So as I told the audience that day, I know my talk wasn't the Different World reunion tour, but I wanted to give them and you a little bit of something that shows CLA's deep connection to not only HBCUs, but A Different World in particular. And to use the framework of those words, A Different World. CLA is now in a different world. We are a long way from 1937, yet our commitment to Black literary excellence has not waned. Yet the ways in which we approach have evolved and continue to evolve as we adapt to a changing world. In 1949, at the 9th Convention in New Orleans, the Association of Teachers of English in Negro Colleges changed our name to the College Language Association, which we now describe, as you heard our VP say, as the oldest and largest organization of Black professors of languages and literature in the Americas. Just as we adapted then shortly after the end of World War II, we must continue to adapt as we are working on moving out of the COVID-19 years. Many of us on the CLA Executive Committee looked to those years following World War II to provide guidance and understanding on how to move following the only other time we have had to cancel conventions. If you look in your convention program, you can see those two major markers and points for the organization, the two places where we were unable to gather as a CLA family. After spending approximately a week, that's a little travel research award presentation right there. After spending approximately a week at the Woodruff Library with the CLA archives, which I will admit wasn't enough time, not even remotely, I reevaluated the talk that I was planning to give at the end of the week. I wanted to challenge myself, my fellow members, and other leaders and administrators to look to the archives. Look to the archives. Because we are in a different world, yet our ancestors and those who have gone before us have left us guidebooks or roadmaps on how we can approach a situation or challenge and still utilize the knowledge, skill sets, and resources of the current moment. When I applied for the travel grant, I was a faculty member at Mississippi State University, and now I'm leading Black Studies at the City College of New York as part of the City University of New York system, CUNY. I was hired there to rebuild and to restore Black Studies to department status at the flagship of the 25-institution CUNY system, the largest system in America. Back in 1969, a group of Black and Puerto Rican students, 10 in particular, gathered on the campus of City College and issued 5 demands to their administrators. They were demanding better opportunities from themselves, from their professors, and in their curriculum. One of those demands was for the establishment of a school or department that studies Black people. Their demands were rejected and met with major resistance. In response, those students took over the institution and held it hostage for approximately 2 weeks. This has been labeled the takeover. The story of those students is chronicled in a new film, The 5 Demands, and will be released soon on PBS. From those demands, the Black Studies Department was eventually established at City College in the early 70s. Yet in 1996, CUNY disbanded the department and turned it into a program. And for nearly 30 years, the flagship of the CUNY system, the City College of New York, which is in Harlem, did not have a Black Studies department. In a space where the Harlem Renaissance began, where Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, Jessie Fawcett, Nella Larson, Elaine Locke, and so many others had honored and celebrated Blackness, there was no Black Studies department. Yet, following the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and other social protests, students and faculty began once again pushing for a Black Studies department in Harlem, New York. In the fall of 2023, I started at City College with the major charge of building a Black Studies department in the CUNY bureaucracy. And if you're not familiar with CUNY bureaucracy, it's a special thing. Yet we are currently scheduled to go before the CUNY Board of Trustees in June for the final vote for the reestablishment of Black Studies, June 23rd. Nearly 30 years later, those students will once again have one of their 5 demands met. So when I arrived at the archives, I was now looking at it not only as a scholar, but also as an administrator. And I've been thinking about what the archives can do for us as leaders. What can the archives tell us? What should we be doing with or asking of our archives? How can the archives make us better leaders and scholar leaders? During our 81st annual convention last year in 2023, which was hosted by Emory University in Atlanta and negotiated by former CLA president Dr. Dash of Spelman, I looked to the archives for guidance. The 2023 convention was our first convention in person post-COVID. We had a fairly new leadership team. We had gone through a transition where many of our seasoned leaders had retired, and our executive committee was mainly made up of newer CLA scholars, many of whom had attended CLA conventions over the years, but none of whom had run a CLA convention. We were in a unique situation of nervousness and some anxiety of, if we build it, will they come? Following the devastation of COVID-19 and the learning curves of event management and leadership of an international convention. In some of our early planning meetings, as I met with the team and shared my experiences of learning over the years from Akiba and former CLA treasurers Elizabeth West and Yakini Kemp and former CLA presidents Dana Williams of Howard and Warren Carson and Antonio Tillis and many other CLA leaders who have paved the way and trained me, I also looked to the archives. It was part of my commitment to celebrate our history as we plan for the future, because I know that an organization that is made up of primarily volunteers who can occasionally scrape up enough pennies, nickels, dollars, and dimes to pay some contract workers, it doesn't get to nearly 90 years of surviving without looking to our leadership of the past. In my grant application, I said that I would like to present a presidentially curated mini exhibit that will also be published in our CLA journal, CLAJ, which can be found on Project Muse and JSTOR. The goal is to introduce CLA members to archival materials so that they might start digital projects, book projects, journal articles, and other types of endeavors that would utilize the Woodruff Library and the CLA archives. Ultimately, the goal is to inspire our members to write and produce critical works while expanding the reach and brand of CLA. And if you're not familiar with some of those events and things that came out of that convention, I want to flip over right quick to some of those things. So some of you saw this picture this morning. This, of course, is the cover of the initial conference of the teachers of English in Negro colleges. This is what they had in Memphis in 1937 at the very first convention. And as I started looking at those original documents, I found another one in particular that I found incredibly useful. I said, what were they doing? How were they acting? What can we do to celebrate this moment of returning, of coming back together? And I'm gonna skip over because I'm gonna show you another one right quick. In particular, I had a new journal editor, a brilliant scholar who had agreed to lead CLAJ. And she said, I want to do something that honors and celebrates this as well. And of course, we were looking at those nickels and dollars and dimes and saying, what can we do? And I said, let's look to the archives. And so for those of you who were here last year, at your seat at the banquet, you all received this little booklet right here. And this was because we looked to the archives to celebrate a moment. The cover of this little booklet was the very first cover of the CLA journal. And we wanted to celebrate that moment. And you can find that in our archives. Yeah, does anyone remember what was on the back of this booklet? One person? Right here, Dr. Melton. The back was the cover of our second convention program, the second annual conference, which Dr. Melton regularly reminds us you cannot call it annual until it's your second at least. The second annual conference of the Teachers of English in Negro Colleges, March 25th to 26th, 1938. And where was it held? In Atlanta, at Atlanta University. We had an issue, we had a moment where we said we need to reinvigorate and we need to give something to our members. And what did we do? We looked to the archives. I knew that the first event of our 82nd convention in Memphis, our founding city, would be a campus tour and luncheon of Lemoyne-Owen College. The week before my visit to the archives, I had the honor of welcoming many of our leadership team to Memphis for our spring retreat and to plan for this convention and to strategize for the future of our organization. During our time there, we were able to visit and tour Lemoyne, and if one considers the segregation and racism that was happening in Memphis, the South, and the United States in 1937, one can imagine how unwelcoming a space that was for Black academics, Black PhDs, and Black people seeking a higher education. Yet in the midst of those challenges, Black scholars laid the foundation that it continues to allow scholars and students to succeed today. The goal of the future archival exhibit is to highlight the history, legacy, reach, vision, mission, and excellence of CLA while inspiring a new generation of scholars. And it was incredibly special to have our leadership team at the space and place where we started. I was so thankful to receive the travel grant, to spend some time in the CLA archives, and for the AUC's continued protection of the archives, because we also have to remember that the AUC also could use your funding and donations as well as they protect our archives. It helped to make me a better scholar and a better leader. I jokingly told them that even though I was still having to do work emails during my archives visit, there was something different about writing CLA emails from that space. It was an honor and a privilege to write an email from the Robert W. Woodruff Library surrounded by some of the original founding documents of CLA. I felt surrounded by the history of our beloved organization. I was struck by how much CLA has evolved and changed over the years, yet it has remained committed to the single purpose of excellence in language skills while serving as a space for Black people to pursue that excellence. Last year, our 81st annual convention in Atlanta, hosted by Emory, was a celebration and restoration for so many of us since we were reconvening in person for the first time since COVID-19. And this year, we have the opportunity to expand upon that idea with a homecoming in Memphis. As I mentioned, we do not have a host institution for this 82nd annual convention. Yet the CLA Executive Committee has planned unique moments for us to give back and to celebrate the institution that first gave us a home, the now Lemoyne-Owen College. During the founding city reception, and I'm gonna wrap it up soon because I know this is the last thing that's keeping you from that cash bar, and I do say cash bar and the snacks that are there. During the founding city reception, right after this, we will take our convention photograph, and I'm gonna go back to the inside of one of these. Let's see if I can find it. Oops, that's not what we're trying to do. Right there you have one of the pages from the second one. I can't get to it right now, but I'll show it to you if you want to look at it in a little bit. On the very inside of both convention programs 1 and 2, they had a tradition where they took a convention photograph where all the members who were there would gather. The very first one they took on the steps of the administration building at Lemoyne-Owen College. And one of the things that we wanted to do this year was to look to the archives as we reconvene for the second time following COVID-19. So hopefully you saw it on social media. Hopefully you saw it in your convention program. Hopefully you saw it on our website, all the different ways that we are working to communicate with you, that we asked you to rep your school, in just a little bit. And I see some of you are already doing it. Look at it, already ready, dressed to go. For the CLA Founding City Reception, where we'll take this year's convention photograph. So if you don't have it on right now, run to your room. There's a Target across the street. Maybe they got your school. If not, I know a school you can rep. Reverend Ward, what school could they rep? The University of Memphis, you can rep. Second generation alum right here. The University of Memphis, the real blue to all my Duke exec committee, because I got the podium right now. So the real blue to this entire row of Duke people sitting there together. You can rep the University of Memphis. We will welcome you. I know they have it. Yes, thank you, Dad. We will do our own clap. You can rep the University of Memphis from the Target right across the street. They will help you out, and you can make it back in time. I'll have them hold the cash bar for you. So come out wearing your favorite t-shirt, hoodie, sweatshirt, or paraphernalia from the school you went to, wish you went to, want to went to. Come out, because we looked to the archives for this moment. So in conclusion, I invite you to look to the archives for your teaching, your research, your leadership, and your service. It has guided me, and I hope that it will guide you too. And as the president of CLA, I am deeply committed to protecting and advancing the legacy of this historic organization. CLA, look to the archives. Thank you.